Hello guys, Diggin here, and welcome to my kind of review slash first impressions of the VKB SIM Gladiator Mk.II. So I just received this unit, and I'm now going to try to make a little bit of a kind of a review style thing about it. So I have one thing to compare it to, and that is my trusty T16K. I had two of these, but one unfortunately broke. Completely my own fault, although I do feel like the T16Ks have a little bit of, you know, general durability issues. You know, in some parts, especially the twist, you know, if you twist it a little bit too hard, it's already gonna break. Already I have some pictures of the inside, because the other one that broke, I took it apart and I looked on the inside, and the bottom part is like completely cracked because I twisted it too hard. And the spring basically like pushed something, you know, pretty badly. So I hope this one will do a little bit better. I'll try not to twist this one as hard. So in terms of first impressions, the biggest differences for me instantly is when holding it. So I feel like the ergonomics, I mean, this is really a testament to how good value the Thrustmaster T16K really is. So in terms of what I wanted to say, in terms of ergonomics, I definitely feel like the T16K is near as making a difference perfect. It is ambidextrous. You can switch out this, and you have this nice, you know, thumb rest here. So you can basically just like put that on here, and it's really comfortable in the hand. So, and I noticed this the first time because when I held this one for the first time, you can see like, where do you put your thumb? You know, basically you put it either under there, you know, under the hat switch here, or you put it on the hat switch all the time, and then kind of fly like that, you know. So that's the first kind of point that I have. Like, it's not as logical, I feel like, as a T16K in terms of ergonomics. Because, yeah, so I don't really know where to put my thumb. It's not a huge deal. In the back here, you have a little shift button, which is actually super nice. We'll get to that later. So what you do, I mean, I guess what I would do is just put my pinky kind of always on the shift button, so I could always reach it kind of, and then I can fit my thumb under the hat switch over here. Or you can always, you know, get a little bit on top of the shift button, you know, and then you can hold it a little bit higher, and then, you know, kind of always touch the hat switch. Or kind of have it resting on the wrist rest, which is probably what it's meant to do, and then kind of always have your finger on there. I guess that's the first, you know, in terms of ergonomics, difference that I felt. Another difference is the trigger. I actually really like the trigger. There's just a little bit difference in the action between the trigger on the Gladiator and the T16K. So basically, if I can try to show you, the actuation point for the trigger on this one is right at the beginning. You see, I just have to press it slightly, and it's already, you know, engaging. And then after that, you have some wiggle room, so you can click it, and then you can still, you know, push it, and it's not really doing anything, right? So you can kind of push it through after the actuation point. So it's a pretty flexible trigger in that way. It's really flexible. It's actually pretty good. It also has this nice, and if you can see it, it's this nice grippy pattern on it, which is really nice. This trigger feels really good. It just feels completely different than the T16Ks. So this particular T16K that I have here has a smooth trigger, and as you can see, it has a little bit of wiggle room, and then it engages right at the end point. So some wiggle room, then it engages at the end point, and there's no flex after that. It's completely solid. So that is a little bit of a difference. You can see how much this flexes. Actually, on the previous iteration of the Gladiator Mk.II, they had some durability issues on the trigger itself, but they now have used a different kind of polycarbonate that is supposed to make things better. The Gladiator Pro actually has this part is entirely metal. So you have an entirely metal trigger, which you can also order separately from VKB, if I'm not mistaken. And it will also, I think, work on the normal Gladiator, because it's basically the same thing. That's also something I like. It's kind of modular, you know. It's more modular than the T16K. The T16K is what you buy is what you get, right? This one isn't as modular as the Pro, as far as I've understood, but there you go. Also, whenever I watched a couple reviews on this one before buying it, and everyone was kind of talking about the smoothness, and yeah, I gotta agree, it's a very smooth, buttery smooth feeling, you know, movement of the stick. There is definitely some, you know, in the middle there is a point, you know, where you kind of get a little bit of a tick, you know, in the stick, where it's kind of like the middle neutral point, so you definitely get that a slight bit, but it's really very, very mild. Whereas on the T16K, you can, you know, it's basically a thump in the middle of the movement, and it's a much, you know, this one is very, just a couple fingers. This one is already like heavier, so this one is definitely lighter to move around. Look at my, I just took a pinky finger, and it's just like it's very light. This one is, you know, I kind of have to pull it a little bit harder. This one is definitely stiffer. So I don't know yet if I'm gonna like that or not. I'm gonna have to kind of see that. So about the functionality, I guess I'll talk now. So here on the T16K, you have more buttons on here. So you have the hat switch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 buttons here, and then 1 here. And it all feels, you know, pretty logical to me. It feels very, you know, every button is very easy to press. So that's something I really liked about this one. This one is a little bit different. So you have this big button over here on top. I'm not sure what I'm going to use that for yet, because I play Star Citizen. For those unfamiliar with me, I play Star Citizen. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to use that for yet, but I guess I'll find something. And then you have the hat switch over here. But basically on the T16K, it really makes sense. Every way is as easy to push as you would expect, right? On this one, it's also very easy. You have to push it forward, backward, left. But to the right, it's pretty easy still, but you're kind of, you know, hitting this plastic part over here with your thumb. So it's not as, you know, smooth or logical feeling as on the T16K for me. I mean, it's definitely usable for sure. It's a good hat switch. You can push it from the side kind of, or whatever. You can, you know, put your finger into it, and then you can still feel it, but you're still always hitting this plastic part. So that's also a little bit of an ergonomics thing that I, you know, that I did like more in the T16K. And then on the throttle part, so this throttle is really smooth. You know, it has quite a bit of resistance to it. Not too much. It's a nice throttle. You know, on the T16K, that's super loose. It's like, it's a very loose. You know, here if I do that on this one, kind of not going anywhere. You see, like, really have to push it, and then it does move, and it's very smooth as well. Then you have all these other buttons here as well, little buttons. And one thing I wanted to say also about the buttons on the top is that you also, of course, I mean, it has less buttons. It has 1 hat switch and 1 big button and a trigger. That's all you're getting. But you have this shift button, which actually makes you, you know, gives you an entirely different set of buttons to press. I guess this one is, these buttons are a little bit more accessible. But if you press a shift button, then suddenly, you know, you have instead of 5 actions, you have 10, which is more than on the T16K, obviously. A little bit more. But you do have to press that shift button. But I mean, in my book, that's already pretty good, because then it basically means you have a dual action trigger as well. So you can, I don't know, you know, normal trigger could be, you know, somewhat kind of weapon. Shift trigger could be like fire missiles or something like that. I'm not really sure yet what I'm gonna do with it, but I do like that, and that does give it quite a bit of functionality. Also on this front, the shift button also works for all these buttons, as far as I know. So you have a nice big eject button, and I'm going to use that for, because in Star Citizen you can't eject, obviously, so I will probably bind eject. That would make the most sense. You have a start button here. I guess that's more for kind of like planes. Then you also have flaps here. If you like plane simulators, you probably know exactly what that does. I'm not really sure, personally. And then, yeah, just a bunch more buttons that you can rebind to anything, basically. And this one is actually pretty interesting. This is a mode button, and then you can see the light here changing color. So you have 2 entirely different modes. I haven't really looked into the software just yet. This is kind of a first impression. So what this button does is you can basically have a binding for everything, and then you can use this button and the bindings can be completely different for a different game, for example, you know. So that is actually also pretty cool. And then of course you still have the shift button. So basically you have 4 different complete different, you know, solo layouts, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's kind of my first impression. You know, this one, you know, about the smoothness, this one has here a rubber kind of seal over here where it kind of, if you know, you can see that kind of bumps against it, so it does give it a little bit of a rubbery feeling, but it is very smooth, so that's actually really nice. On this one it's a little bit, you know, it feels definitely a little bit cheaper, but not by that much. It's still a very smooth stick, for especially for the price. This one costs double of what the T16K costs, so keep that in mind. So the ergonomics are a bit, you know, a little bit wonkier on this one, but it definitely feels very smooth. The trigger is very nice. It has a metal base, obviously, so it is more solid on its feet when I'm kind of pulling it. You know, my desk wants to move more than the stick, while this one is, yeah, you can see it moves easily. On this one, it moves if I really, you know, push the front, but the back, because I guess the stick is a little bit more positioned to the front than it is to the back of the plate, so I guess pushing it to the front would be a little bit easier, but to the back it's, yeah, it's pretty tough. My desk wants to move, you know. So it's definitely more solid on its feet. So yeah, that's kind of my first impression slash comparison to this T16K here. I'm gonna have to see how it holds up, how it's gonna, you know, how the software is gonna work and stuff like that. But I'll make something more definitive for that as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.